Please come in. You're right on time. The door only opens when the clock strikes midnight. Georgia and Hannah are preparing to broadcast from the belfry. Just like this old bell tower, they have many stories to tell. Some old and some new. Follow me up these stairs, but mind your step. They're waiting for you.
Cranard Center for the Performing Arts and 40 North 88 West are partnering up to host a costume walk. The event will allow apparel enthusiasts to see Cranard's vast collection of costumes on display throughout downtown Urbana.
When was that again?
I'm looking now. It's loading.
Okay, I saw it the other day and I was like, ooh, that sounds fun. And then I feel like I was like, oh, well, I can't go to that.
Oh, it was yesterday
That's
at
why.
4 p.m.
That's why I couldn't go to it. Okay.
Well, that's a shame, but whatever. All right. So a while ago, we talked about zombies.
Did we?
We've talked about vampires and ghosts and all sorts of undead creatures. Or presumably undead or nearly dead. But we need to talk about another undead creature or being that was not covered in those episodes because it's
I just remembered what you're talking about. I'm so excited.
It's more of a modern fictional monster. The Lich. That's the sound it makes.
Hold on.
Maybe. I don't know what's happening. Georgia just walked away. All by myself. Don't want to be all by myself. Are you okay?
Yes. I just heard the door open and I was like, you sitting. You're not going outside. You sit the fuck down. Anyway. The Lich, yay!
Clark Ashton Smith, a fantasy writer in the early 1900s, used the Lich as more of a blanket term for a corpse, which makes sense since it does come from the Old English word for corpse, which is lich.
Yeah.
It's spelled like lick. It's like L-I-C, but like there's various accents and like things over the letters, but it's lich. In his book, The Empire of the Necromancers, one of the novels of the Zothique cycle, which is a series of short stories set in Earth's far distant future. To quote Smith in a letter to L. Sprague de Camp, the science and machinery of our present civilization have long been forgotten, together with our present religions. But many gods are worshipped, and sorcery and demonism prevail again as in ancient days.
It's very, that cycle has, like, it's set in the future, but it has, like, big medieval vibes. It's very, like, sword and sorcery genre. It's awesome.
It is. I should also mention that the stories were quite racist. Held many of the prejudices of the 1930s and on because they were published in the 1930s through the 1950s. And while he certainly tried to create his own fantasy elements, he drew so much from, you know, earthly things because it was supposed to be set on like future Earth.
Yeah.
His words must be taken in context from the time that these stories were written. Yes. So the Empire.
Lovecraft.
Yes. The Empire of the Necromancers was about two necromancer dudes who travel to another part of the continent, which, for those not aware, the Zothique cycle takes place on a future Earth in which there's only one continent left, and it is a combination of all of the continents of sort of smashed together and
reverse Pangea.
Exactly. all of the different cultural traditions have now come together, but they're also incredibly segregated because they've all sort of stayed to their own um, presumptive geographical locations as they would be here in modern day. So they go to another part of the continent in order to reanimate the dead, to work as their servants for eternity. Classic, right?
We love it.
As they move throughout the city, they make it all the way to the palace building, and ultimately reanimating everyone along the way who had ever died in this city. So it's a little bit post-apocalyptic kind of situation. There's a lot of dead people. They end up reanimating the last emperor, whose self-awareness and memory grows the longer that he's kept alive or unalive. You know, it's not real like life because it's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This guy notices the two necromancers getting lazier as they rely more on their servants, and eventually they forget to use their magic entirely because they've managed to reanimate everybody. While the two are asleep, the undead emperor seeks counsel with another undead who was once a great wizard during the emperor's reign. This wizard ends up chopping off the necromancers' heads and then leads the rest of the undead into a portal through to the abyss where they can be bothered no longer, but not before he curses the two necromancers to forever be reanimated on this plane of existence. And they will never be able to enter the abyss, which is presumed to be like that is the afterlife. They're finally able to like move on, right?
Yeah, and the necromancers are like cursed to like purgatory kind of vibes.
No, they're cursed to be on the earthly plane. But
Right,
it
but
is like purgatory
like
because they're neither living nor dead.
that's what I mean. And they
Yeah.
don't get to move on to like their souls don't get to move on to the final
No,
resting
they're stuck
place.
around forever,
Yeah.
rotting away.
Like those pirates in Lord of the Rings until
Yeah.
Aragorn frees them.
Now, every undead being in that novel is referred to as a lich because that was the word used for like corpse, for undead corpse. But if we're understanding things from the fantasy fiction perspective that we know and love, the only real lich is the undead wizard who ended up beheading the two necromancers because he was powerful enough to overcome their influence. It developing from this kind of sword and sorcery fiction, like you just mentioned. Liches generally refer to powerful sorcerers or wizards who use their magic to triumph over death. That's like the very basic, solid definition. In Robert E. Howard's novella Skullface, an incredibly racist, xenophobic, anti-Semitic short story published at the end of 1929. This story was about an Atlantean lich from Atlantis who was set about to bring the end to white civilization, working with East Asian and African people to kill the white man. This is the guy that created the Conan the Barbarian, by the way. Many critics thought him to be a cheap copy of H.P. Lovecraft because he tried to write a lot of the same kind of short stories. It makes sense. He was a member of the Lovecraft Circle, which, for those of you who don't know, is the like 10,000 people that HP. No,
well,
it was like 1,000 people or something.
But they actually corresponded a lot through letters. They were actually very good friends. Robert E. Howard reached out to Lovecraft when he was still really young, and Lovecraft
he was like one of the first people to be part of like the Lovecraft Circle.
Lovecraft like mentored him essentially through he was a prolific letter writer, and so he mentored Robert E. Howard through letters and really encouraged his like creativity to like create his own signature style, which kind of became like the Conan stories.
Robert E. Howard's main sort of topic of discussion was that barbarism versus civilization, implying that civilization is fragile and people will always resort to this sort of barbarian, grotesque, brutish behavior and tactics. which is fascinating because then the tone in a lot of those kinds of stories sort of shifted to barbarism. Like barbarians were the main character in quite a few stories, which is fine. Whatever. I read The Thing on the Doorstep, but
oh yeah,
which is H.P. Lovecraft's Lich story, or at least one of them. I thought it was fine. It was very Lovecraftian. I don't remember the character names, but essentially it's just about a guy who gets corrupted by a witch, essentially, and he becomes undead and then tries to corrupt other people and turn other people undead.
He's corrupted by a wizard.
A wizard.
Who is inhabiting the body of his granddaughter, I think, or like, well, great, however.
That's right.
He inhabits their bodies until they themselves die, and by locking their souls in his own corpse, essentially. And and then he moves on to this man that she marries.
Yeah. But I digress. Another short story called The Sword of the Sorcerer by Gardner Fox, who was the co-creator for the original Flash and the original Sandman of DC Comics, sees Kothar, a Conan the Barbarian ripoff. A lot of critics say.
Sounds like it.
Kothar is exploring an ancient tomb that turns out to be the final resting place of a lich named Afgorkon. Afgorkon. Afgorkonn.
Sounds very D&D.
Yeah. Whose countenance sends lesser men fleeing in fear. It turns out that the Lich has been waiting for someone like Kothar to set out on a task for him, to destroy a witch queen. Ooh. He is gifted a sword called Frostfire, ends up killing the witch queen, and then the Lich allows him to keep the sword so long as he forgoes all other material wealth. Kothar is totally okay with this because he was already kind of living that way and goes on his merry way, all the while wondering if the Lich didn't tell him the whole truth of the situation. But that Kothar, the stories of Kothar are like multiple stories, and so it continues on. I did not read past this situation. So this exact story is what inspired Gary Gygax to describe the Lich as a monster in the original Dungeons and Dragons. Oh God, what the hell is it called? Oh, Greyhawk. It's a supplementary volume to the original Dungeons and Dragons rulebook, which describes the Lich. And this is the description is that of a skeletal monster that was formerly either a magic user or a cleric in life. That's it. It appeared again in the first edition of the Monster Manual in 1977, where it was described as having been created with the use of powerful and arcane magic, formerly ultra powerful magic users, now non-human and non-living. Other descriptions of liches as in the monster manuals that came after, as well as supplementaries like the Spelljammer supplementary something ships, lost ships or something, focused on complicating liches a bit more and introducing concepts such as the demi-lich, arch-lich, and variations such as the psionic and Sewell lich. More and more came about as people decided to create more background and history for the worlds of D&D. According to the Forgotten Realms wiki, liches refer to an almost universally evil form of undead spellcaster of great power, usually a wizard, but also possibly a sorcerer, warlock, or cleric, the other spellcasting classes. They're feared by mortal beings for their malign magic, their intelligence, and their willingness to embrace undeath for a chance to live forever, or rather, to endure forever, because they are no longer living. Liches are generally gaunt and skeletal.
Oh, yeah.
With withered flesh stretched tight across horribly visible bones. but they vary greatly in appearance depending on their age and level of decay. Obviously, they look more skeletal and gaunt and thin skin over skeleton because they are undead. There's no more blood flowing to,
make them juicy,
make them juicy and viscous, the humors, if you will.
squishy.
If their eyes had been destroyed, lost, or rotted away, bright pinpoints of crimson light burned in their empty sockets.
Oh yeah.
So cool. Didn't you mention in your Screaming Skulls episode something about like red eyes? Or am I tripping? Maybe I just read a different description about liches somewhere, and that's where I'm confusing the two.
Yeah.
I think that visual is so fascinating.
In the story that the guy wrote, when he stole the skull and it was floating.
That's right.
He said that it was like spectral light.
Yeah. I think magical floating skulls are kind of cool.
Yeah.
Or floating heads with long black hair and entrails dripping. Super cool. Liches often do not have lips or the necessary organs to produce natural speech, but they have the ability to project speech from their mouths magically, moving the jaw, if they have a jaw, if it's not rotted away yet, to sort of help with the illusion that they're speaking. So rather than like moving their vocal cords, it's like
thaumaturgy or something,
where
they're just
projection.
Like blah, blah,
blah. Blah, 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 yeah,
and their mouth's just going
yeah, like how like a Halloween skull would be, or a Halloween skeleton that
it just moves up and down.
that like activates via motion at the Halloween store, Spirit Halloween. As their bodies continue to degrade over the centuries, a lich might eventually become a demi-lich, which I will talk about later.
Ooh.
Some liches dress in rich and regal finery and jewelry. Others wear the clothes or uniforms of former occupations or allegiances, while many appear to be nothing more than lepers, as their clothes have rotted away, and they don't care about looking good no more.
The first kind, they're just trying to distract you from their disgusting skin.
It's possible. Or if they were a renowned wizard, they may have the funds to just wear fine clothes and jewelry.
Yeah.
And someone who has essentially eternal life can just have a bunch of money,
Yeah.
If you just got to invest it, you know what I'm saying? Bitcoin, it's all the rage.
Yeah. Invested into a good tavern.
Yeah, exactly. Those spellcasters who seek immortality through lichdom tend not to do so merely for fear of death through these rituals, but they do it they tend not to do it because they don't want to die. It's more so they want more time to pursue their ambitions.
Yeah, to gain the knowledge or
whatever they are going for, right? They discard any mortal connections in favor of a solitary existence, generally to pursue magical power and knowledge. They are single track, one-minded, just go, go, go. The hallmark of a lich is that it has tethered its soul to the prime material plane, and as a result, most liches retain much of the personality and even emotions that they had in life, at least at first, which is so interesting to think about. However, countless years of undeath, also like that word, cause their memories to fade and the mind to twist. Eventually, a lich loses all shreds of its humanity.
Yay.
The state of existing as a lich is not a pleasant one. No shit, because you're dead and rotting. And a lich is able to maintain its existence only through sheer force of will. Can you imagine being so motivated that you just stay magically undead?
Absolutely not.
No. However, over time, as this lich loses its sense of humanity, this willpower warps into a near obsessive drive to become more and more powerful or more and more knowledgeable. Many soon appear borderline insane in their hunger to acquire arcane secrets. This fixation often leads a lich to outright forget about its former life, and most liches reach a point at which they abandon their real names in preference for ominous titles and pseudonyms. I tried to find interesting ones online, but all I could find were like sort of like if you went onto a fantasy name generator and you just like got a name. I thought there was
Yeah.
going to be like a silly one like General Potato or something like that. I don't know. Or Bubkus.
Okay.
I don't know. Do you have any cool lich names in your head? Mr. Stinky.
Um, it'd be like Lichy McLich face.
Yes. Yes, Lichy McLichface.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perhaps because of this effort to bury their old identities, it's said that speaking a lich's true name could confer power over it, and reminders of its past life are a good way to get its attention and
Okay.
distract it. Kind of like fairies, I guess.
I was gonna say it's like that Shakespeare episode of Doctor Who
Mm.
when Martha's like, I named thee Carrionite, and they're like, ah!
Liches are often proud and arrogant, demanding the subservience of all those around them. Gross. Many are cold and scheming. They care only for their own affairs and usually pay little heed to the living unless their own activities are disrupted or some major event catches their attention. Like I don't know, a meteor crashes into the earth.
Mm. Oh, I was
Contrary to
gonna
popular,
build my
sorry.
house there.
Oh, damn.
Damn it.
I would I had a cave there that I secluded myself in. What
Ugh.
the heck?
Now I only have 12 caves.
Oh, I guess now I have to care about global warming because my one cave is flooded or whatever. I don't know. Um, Contrary to popular belief, most do not have explicitly evil goals.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, a lich might ascribe to any alignment, at least in D&D.
Mm-hmm.
However, because they are so completely detached from any sense of mortal morality,
Mm-hmm.
the living can generally not understand their actions as anything but pure evil because it's so selfish and driven and single-minded, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even so, some liches are known to be amicable and willing to exchange words rather than spells with mortals, or even to offer advice or training.
Oh
This
my
sounds
God.
so specifically like in D&D, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in some module that exists. In very rare instances, truly good liches arise, which include those who have a more noble pursuit for seeking lichdom, as well as those who have lichdom forced upon them.
Oh. Oh.
Although I did also read that you can't be forcibly turned into a lich; you have to be willing.
I was gonna say, how can you be forced to turn into a lich if it's willpower that keeps you alive?
Mm-hmm. I think maybe it's like forced upon them in that it's their last resort to reach a goal or something like that. Like, for example, someone trying to resurrect their dead wife. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, sure.
Right. And they're like, literally, the only way I know how to do this is to become a fucking lich, I guess.
Yeah.
That sucks, but all right, let's do it. Liches are avid collectors of arcane secrets and tools, including magic items, potions, spell scrolls, spell books, staves, and wands. They use these items extensively and design devious traps meant to ensnare adventurers in order to add their victims' magic items to their own collection.
Oh yeah. Loot the body!
Gotta loot the body, gotta loot the castle or whatever. Whatever its goals are, a lich pursues them patiently and single-mindedly, as I've said.
Could not be me.
Usually relying on its cunning, its magic, and legions of lesser undead, which it would animate personally to reach its goal. Because a lich has eternal longevity, it often uses this time to form schemes that take decades or even centuries to develop. You're going to love this. Sometimes preferring to outlive its foes instead of confronting them.
That is 100% me.
Yeah.
You do whatever you want. I'm just going to be over here being petty.
I wonder if that's what Mitch McConnell is doing. Is he a lich?
He sure does look like him.
Yeah, seriously.
Uh,
As such, most liches live in secluded areas like that flooded cave that I mentioned, where they are content with furthering whatever research or plots they have in motion.
I do like that. That sounds nice.
Yeah. So, since a lich originates as being a spellcaster, most commonly a wizard, they're become very powerful at spell casting, very capable, only getting better with age. Because they had the time for it, they can memorize spells and cast them as they had in life. And eventually, they'd no longer need the spell components and spell books as a living caster would have needed, because they've committed spells to memory, almost as if you're casting them via ritual, but it's instantaneous.
Yeah.
Owing to the great depths of time they have to research and practice their magic, this is a direct quote, that's funny, it is not uncommon for a lich to wield potent, unique spells of their own devising. I really like that, because there are, in D&D, there are a lot of spells at your disposal, but I feel like there are some specific instances where you need something that fits your goals.
Yeah.
And sometimes fireball ain't gonna cut it, or magic missile.
What do you mean? Fireball fixes everything.
Well, I guess. Liches also possess several unique abilities outside of spell casting, such as being able to manifest cold fire. They can weaken, terrorize, or even kill the living with just a touch.
Ooh.
They can drive the living into unconsciousness with just the sound of their voice. Ooh. And they can cause fear, pain, or death with a simple glance.
Damn.
Even merely looking upon a lich, not even looking them in the eyes, just looking at them, could compel the weak-willed to flee in terror.
Oh my god.
It's really scary. As powerful undead beings, liches are potent necromancers and wield great power over life and death. They're able to disrupt the life forces of those nearby and are highly effective at animating the dead. So it's a little surprise that they decide to command small armies of lesser undead instead of trying to recruit a living army. They're like, yeah. I'm powerful enough to do this. Also, even good liches rely on undead servants and still hold influence over the undead that they summon. Some liches can also regenerate. But more importantly, outside of that special ability, the reason they are considered immortal or to have eternal unlife, it's impossible to kill a lich permanently without destroying its phylactery, which is a special item or trinket. What?
Oh, I was just, this doesn't sound familiar.
Oh, no, not at all.
At all.
Also, I don't know if it's phylactery or phylactery. I didn't look at the
phylactery.
Phylactery. It's a special item or trinket that contains the lich's life essence, basically. Their soul, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, Horcrux, yeah, we know.
As long as this phylactery is unharmed, the lich is immortal. If slain, its mind and spirit would leave its corpse and flee to the phylactery. And if the lich's old body was destroyed, such as with the disintegrate spell, or like it was burnt to a crisp into ashes, A new body would eventually manifest next to the phylactery. I believe it's like within 10 days it would be fully manifested, a new body.
Wow.
This spiritual form of a lich divorces from a physical body, known as a lichny.
Ooh.
And it seeks to reunite with and possess its body in order to resume its own life. A lichny is completely invulnerable and impervious to any attempts to harm it as it flees to its phylactery. So it's like the other half of the soul, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the remaining essence or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The lichny can also temporarily inhabit another corpse, which produces a white-like creature that can only cast whatever spells the lich had already memorized.
Uh-huh.
In this form, the lichny maintains its wits, but is limited to the physical capabilities of the corpse, which are obviously quite less than its true form, its old body or whatever. The lichny thus unerringly seeks out its real body as if following a locate object spell. That comes directly from the wiki. I think what it's trying to say is it just kind of instinctively knows where the phylactery is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It
just has like a compass.
Yeah. And that's in it, this corpse that it has embodied.
Yeah.
But within 7 days of ingesting any piece of its true body, the whitish form, so the inhabited new corpse, metamorphosizes into a full lich body, like a new physical form.
Okay.
Possessing another body in this way is much more difficult if the lichny was of a goodly or lawful disposition. So you got to be a little bit more evil or neutral.
Yeah. Well, that's easy in D&D.
Yeah. Yeah. Liches cannot come about by any natural or spontaneous means, which kind of it's different from what it said earlier, whereas but we just discussed that. Transforming into one requires an individual to make a very purposeful and evil decision to pursue the ancient and terrible rituals that would make them into a lich. There's more than one way to become a lich, but as a rule, all methods are secret and complex rites that involve the costly and complex crafting of a phylactery and the brewing and drinking of a toxic mixture made with the blood of an innocent, known as a lichny potion. Acquiring the knowledge of one of these rituals often requires making deals with dark gods or fiends who demand service or fealty in exchange for these secrets. Only a living individual could successfully complete the transformation into a lich. Since liches seek immortal life, or rather unlife, in a single-minded fashion to complete some task or pursue some form of knowledge, what would that be for you? What would you become powerful and super undead for? If you were capable of that, because we've both been saying like there's no way.
I literally cannot think of anything that I would want to do that single-mindedly.
You know what I would pick?
Watching TV, sleeping.
No, I would pick play every video game.
My God.
Yeah, take a very long time.
Yeah.
100% every game.
God damn.
Yeah.
No, I just can't think of anything I would want to do. There is not one single thing that I would get so excited about that that's all I want to do.
What about try every version of baked good? Or like every kind of cheese or every wine? Like food motivated thing. That could be fun.
Yeah.
What about read every book that you have interest in? Excuse me.
I don't know, man. Maybe it's the ADHD. Try all of the crafts. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's a little too all encompassing,
Yeah.
Like to focus on one single goal is kind of crazy. Because if I were to become undead and have eternal life, I would want to do everything. Everything.
Yeah. Which I
Yeah.
guess like that in itself could be a goal. Like
Yeah.
I want to try all the things.
I want to travel all over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a very broad thing to do single-mindedly. But also if you were a lich, that would take the humanity out of it. So then
Mm-hmm.
what's the point in traveling if you don't get the human experience of what it means to like be in a new place?
It's sort of like becoming a travel vlogger. You know what I mean? You're kind of just doing it to keep doing it to make money, right?
Yeah.
It's like you may not be getting a lot out of this experience anymore because you started into
Yeah.
it and now you're so dead set on doing it that
Yeah. The
is
like
it real anymore?
the joy. Yeah.
Yeah.
The like yeah, the spark.
Hmm. So you could say that Voldemort was a lich,
100%.
given that he became incredibly powerful with his magic and then eventually split his soul into pieces, not just one phylactery, but many,
Mm-hmm.
placing them in objects throughout the UK to retain what is immortality, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
His motivation, his single mindedness, was the subjugation and genocide of all non magical people, or more particularly, those without pure magical blood.
Mm-hmm.
As he aged and the more that he split his soul, he did become even more powerful and more single minded toward his goal, losing his, ultimately forgetting his humanity, basically, so much so that he had snake like features and pale white skin.
Mm-hmm.
Until near to the end when Harry calls him Tom. But in a rage, he rejects it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He's momentarily distracted before he succumbs to someone else's power.
Mm-hmm.
In The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien writes
Hell
that
yeah.
the
I said hell yeah.
hell yeah. Tolkien writes that the Nazgul became wraiths as the rings of power consumed the nine mortal men. Those who used the nine rings became mighty in their day, kings, sorcerers, and warriors of old. This is a direct quote from the Silmarillion. They obtained glory and great wealth, yet it turned to their downfall. They had, as it seemed, unending life, yet life became unbearable to them. They could walk, if they would, unseen by all eyes in this world beneath the sun, and they could see things in worlds invisible to mortal men. But too often they beheld only the phantoms and delusions of Sauron. And one by one, sooner or later, according to their native strength and to the good or evil of their wills in the beginning, they fell under the thraldom of the ring that they bore and of the domination of the one, which was Sauron's.
Mm-hmm.
And they became forever invisible, save to them that wore the ruling ring, Sauron's ring, and they entered into the realm of shadows. The Nazgul they were, the ring wraiths, the enemy's most terrible servants. Darkness went with them, and they cried with the voices of death. They had become liches,
Mm-hmm.
while Sauron himself was more of a demi-lich,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lich that no longer has need of a physical body and relies on a demi-lich relies on its extraordinary understanding of magic and reality and being able to corrupt and transform it. They have an understanding that no mortal can possibly conceive and therefore has to rely on the physical beings, or in this case, other liches that it has created forcefully to do its bidding, to become more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is another example of liches being forced into, or people being forced into becoming liches, because it wasn't really
A choice.
entirely a choice because they were given these rings, but they also
Yeah.
didn't know that the rings would corrupt them.
Yeah,
So
they
it
were
was like a slow
tricked into
process.
it.
Yeah. And they aged, it took them longer to age, so they had more time to be corrupted and lose their humanity, which in turn just turned them into liches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really fun. There's also
Uh-huh.
Adventure Time.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the Lich?
Uh, I don't know.
Also, did you know that the like sort of apocalyptic world is based on fucking Mad Max in Adventure Time?
Oh, that makes sense.
Or was inspired by Mad
Yeah.
Max, not based on. But yeah,
Yeah.
I find that so interesting. I had no idea.
I just love the Lich in Adventure Time. He's like, I don't know. It's so dark.
Yeah. But for those of you who don't know, the Lich is the main antagonist of Adventure Time.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's trying to corrupt a lot of things, and he changes.
To say the least.
Yeah. I mean, there's like the whole alternative timeline that he
Mhm.
establishes without the Ice King and his crown and all this, and man, it gets fucked up.
Yeah.
For being such a silly, fun show, it gets real dark. And I love it.
I love it. It's so good. The animation is fun. The voice actors are cool. The plot's good.
Yeah.
It's sometimes kind of,
I mean,
silly, but
you got Tom Kenny, you got what's his
Joe
name?
DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio.
It's Finn the dog.
Donald Glover shows up. John.
I thought it was Joe.
Well, Joe DiMaggio is the one guy.
Also, I just realized I said Finn the dog.
Yeah, I knew what you meant, Jake.
Oh my God. Okay. Anyway.
Hold on. Joe DiMaggio is like the one guy. Joe Maggio is a man I know in Kansas.
Oh, okay. Hi, Joe. John. Whatever.
What is
Shit,
his
man,
name?
I don't know.
John DiMaggio.
Okay. Nice. But anyway, those are some other fictional examples of liches. Most of the material that's out there is really based around Dungeons and Dragons because that introduced the lich as like a fantastical creature into
it's also like defined what it is.
Yeah. It sort of already existed as like an enemy per se, but it really defined it more as like a supernaturally evil thing.
Yeah.
Also, D&D has done a lot to influence our understanding of like how the undead works and how animating corpses work. We've talked about zombies before and how those corpses are animated and like how it sort of shifted into this idea of like the medical zombie, the virus kind of thing, virus, fungus, bacteria, whatever.
Yeah. A biological zombie.
Yeah.
Versus a magical zombie.
Exactly. A lich is a magical zombie, essentially. Yeah. That is just more powerful.
Yeah.
It's a greater undead thing.
Yeah. We have a hierarchy of undead creatures.
Yeah. You would need like a cleric level 20 turn undead.
Yeah.
Turn or destroy undead. But even then,
yeah,
probably not gonna happen.
I mean, that's the thing about D&D though. It just makes us think about how magic in general works. Or like how magic in general could work in this universe or another universe or whatever.
Yeah.
Especially when you get into like homebrew campaigns, it's like, well, I don't think magic would work like this. I think magic would work like this. And you get to experiment with all these different types of magic and rules of magic and side effects of magic and can't wait to see how that pans out for us in a couple hours.
Yeah. All right, but that's pretty much all I got.
Hell yeah. I love just the vibe of the Lich. It's a good one.
Yeah. I wish that it didn't come about in such xenophobic, sort of racist tones.
Yeah. Well,
I am pleased that it became less so as being a part of D&D.
Yeah. But also D&D's roots are in those stories.
Also,
so,
yes. Because
um,
Gary Gygax loved
was a big
all
sword and
those guys.
sorcery fan.
Was he in the Lovecraft circle?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't know if he was old enough.
No. I mean, the main group of writers is like Clark Ashton Smith, Robert E. Howard, Robert Bloch, Edgar Rice Burroughs a little bit. Oh, who else?
There was
There's
that
like
other
some others.
guy
I
from
don't really know what you're going for because you don't really give me much to go on.
I'm trying to sorry. I'm trying to find there's another guy that would talk with Lovecraft.
Was it
And I talked about him.
in one of your episodes?
Yes.
Mm.
You know what? Whatever. Whatever, man. I'm giving up.
Okay, well anyway,
Anyway,
yeah, I don't know. Robert Bloch, Robert E. Howard, Clark Ashton Smith, August Derleth. Those are like the main ones. There's like a couple other like lesser known authors as well, but those were like the most well known ones. Yep.
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 Hell yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Come see us on August 31st, September 1st in Champaign.
Yay.
Dark History and Horror Convention. We'll be the people in a tent in a theater.
We sure will.
Or at least that's the plan. And now I'm hungry, so...
Well, that concludes this week's broadcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you wish to stay in touch, reach out to us at broadcastfromthebelfry@gmail.com or stalk us on Instagram at broadcastfromthebelfry. Again, I hope you've enjoyed our little show. Please rate and review. And until next week, stay spooky.